This program was made possible by the Florida Humanities Council. We come from all over, and we become one state, where we share in the history and become part of the culture that is Florida. The Florida Humanities Council, bringing Floridians together by sharing the stories of our state.
Backstage, are you ready? What about you guys? Are you ready? Pretty good. Let's begin. You're going to trace back on both sides of my family. My great-grandfather was in World War I. My grandfathers were in World War II in Korea. I also had uncles in Vietnam. It wasn't an obvious expectation, but it was understood that military service was honorable, made you strong. The war that I served in and the war that has gone on inside of me have existed for much longer than I've been alive.
My father served on destroyers in the South Pacific with the Navy in World War II. I tried to get war stories out of him as a young man, and occasionally I could, but I see him retreat into some place that I didn't understand. In 1967, I dropped out of high school to join the Marine Corps. I was underage, so I needed someone to sign for me, so I went to my dad and I asked him, and he said, "Do you know there's a war going on?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Do you know what Marines do?" I said, "Yes, that's why I want to join the Marines." And he said, "No way." So, on July the 9th, my 18th birthday, I went to see the Marine recruiter and I signed for myself.
When my son was about 7, I was single. I worked hard in the daytime. I went to school at night. There was this recruiter who kept trying to recruit me to go active Navy. And I thought it over. 20 years, I could retire. So I figured it was the best thing for me. I had to give my mom custody of my son because you could never say, I can't perform my duties because I have a child. So I had to sign him over.
Maybe it's where I lived in Texas, Corpus Christi. Mexican-American culture has such an affinity with the military. You walk into your friends' houses and just about everyone has a picture of some veteran up on the wall. Everybody seemed to love veterans because just about everybody was a veteran. Maybe it's because military service went back in my family, all the way to the Civil War. Further, actually. Both my dad and my stepfather were in the Navy. In fact, during the Vietnam War, my dad did the same thing I did when he was in the Navy. He was a corpsman. He joined the Navy in 1970 to avoid being drafted by the Army. He had a lot of trouble once he got out and had some difficulties readjusting to civilian life. He left my mom when I was 8, left the whole family. Economically speaking, at that point in our lives, we were pretty lower class. And I hated school. I hated school so much. The idea of paying for school, paying for college, just seemed ludicrous to me. And I lived in Texas, and Texas is hot. And our family didn't have air conditioning. So when I joined the junior ROTC, and all the recruiters came in and told us about the air conditioning in the Navy, I thought, that would be cool. So it's a combination of things. Poverty, the backdoor brat. 40% of my graduating class in high school joined the military. It was structure. It was something bigger.
I come from a military family. My granddad, my aunt, my uncle, my brother all served. I was raised in Graceville, a town with one stoplight. When I was younger, I got to visit Kentucky. I also got to go to Washington, D.C. My aunt worked at the Pentagon. Going back to Graceville, it was just like, I can't grow here. So I decided I would go to college or into the military. I put the two together. The Navy would pay for my college, so I signed up. All the while I'm thinking, what did I just do?
My dad was a Marine. He got to shoot the big guns, and his uniform looked so cool. As a kid, I always thought my dad was a badass. Growing up, believe it or not, I was kind of a tomboy. running, playing basketball, football with the boys, and then 9/11 happened. I wanted to do something for my country to be a badass, just like my dad. So, when I was 17, my parents signed for me to join the Army. I did the split option, so I went off to boot camp after my junior year of high school, and I trained in personnel after my senior year.
Believe it or not, I was in your model teenager. Some difficult events had taken place pretty early on, and I was carrying around a really heavy burden of unaddressed emotions. I reached out to my dad, but he wasn't really the feelings kind of guy. He liked to drink and lean on his truck every afternoon. And that wasn't really a way for me to learn how to deal with what was going on. So I got my GED and I went to work. And that was okay for a while. But I still hadn't learned how to manage my life as a responsible adult. Then 9/11 happened. My cousin was with some of the first of the Marines that went into Afghanistan. And I found myself sitting on Folly Beach in South Carolina, looking out across the water and the images of the towers falling in my head. And I thought of my cousin and my grandfather. And everything just came together in that moment. And the next thing that I did was join the military.
I do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me, according to the regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God.
So help me God.
So help me God.
So I flew into boot camp in Great Lakes, Illinois. This guy picked us up in Chicago. He's telling us about the city, telling us about Chicago, telling us about life, asking us what's going on.
Hey, what's up back there? All right.
It's really nice. So we get to the barracks, and you can sense the tone had changed. Everybody's starting to get a little more anxious, a little nervous, maybe a little mentally lost, even a little homesick. Then around 10, 11 o'clock, it's lights out. Then at 2 or 3 in the morning, this maniac comes running in the room, banging on trash cans.
Get the fuck out of me! Get off, you piece of shit! Line up, stand up straight! This is not your fucking mama's house! Don't you fucking eyeball me! You will do as you're told, you fucking maggot!
And I was like, what the hell?
They gave us mad things. Mad boots, mad hats, mad everything. We had to comb our hair back and put this hat on. Oh my goodness. I guess it was to make us look consistent, but it was so darn masculine. And we had to make this cadence up. And mine went,
Mark time, march! Left, 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 right, left.
Mama, mama, please.
Mama, mama, please.
Look what the Navy's done for me.
Look what the Navy's done for me.
They took away my miniskirt.
Took away my miniskirt.
And I'm right to smile and flirt.
All right, to smile.
Company halt! Ready? Begin.
They were making us do this redundant stuff over and over again. And I was wondering, why? I mean, they would tell us to get up, go do this, go do that. Now go do it again. Later on, I figured it out. Because when you're in combat, you have to be alert at all times. And that's what they used to tell us. Stay alert.
Stay alive!
Seems like they'd let us lay down and take a nap.
Or they would have us chant, kill 50 times a day. Like when we go through an obstacle course, get over a really tough wall, the drill instructor would be on the other side. He would scream, kill! And we had to scream it just as loud as him.
Kill!
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 Kill! They were training us to pull the trigger without hesitating.
Recover.
We had to
do a water challenge when you jump from 15 feet and stay afloat. Everybody knew I couldn't swim. The guy in front ragged me the hardest. He gets to the jump and suddenly he screams. Suddenly he's scared of heights and he can't swim. He jumps and splat. I'm like, damn, that hurt. And he's flailing. I jump, I'm in the water, I break the surface, I'm training, I'm proud of myself. I look at that guy and I chuckle. Next thing I know, his hand smacks me in the water. Now I'm flailing. The RDC says, you too, out. The second time around, I had to tread water for 5 minutes. I passed, but I tell people, if I jump in the ocean, I'm good for 5 minutes. 501, we got trouble. When you get through boot camp and you're told after 8 weeks, you're a United States sailor.
Marine.
Soldier.
Sailor.
Soldier. Sailor.
I was so proud. Until that moment, I didn't feel like I belonged. But now I'm in the company of my granddaddy, my mom, and my uncle. I have a family now, and it felt so good.
I'm your fucking family now, right now, right here, right now. Mark time, march. Mama told Johnny not to go downtown.
Marine recruiter coming around
But Johnny went downtown anyway.
to see what the recruiter had to say.
Forward, march. Recruiter asked Johnny what he wanted to be.
I wanna be in the infantry
So Johnny called a plane to Vietnam.
to fight some people called the Viet Cong.
Company, halt. At ease. Dismissed.
Daddy, can you tell me when you saw me off the war? Why those stories that you had told me never seemed to be quite real? There's pictures from the papers show me young and strong and clean. God help me, we were only 18. I trained as a Marine Corps rifleman. I landed in Da Nang, South Vietnam on February the 6th of 1968. I was issued a weapon, assigned a unit, and sent to Way City. This was just after the Tet Offensive had begun. The NBA had overrun the city, and they had instructed the civilian population to leave, clear out of the city. Well, not all of them could. The elderly, the sick and infirmed, even mothers with new infants, and if they couldn't leave, the NBA killed them. It was, I still had my stateside boots on. I hadn't been issued jungle fatigues yet. It rained and rained. It was wet and miserable during the day, and at night it get down to like 70 degrees and feel like it was freezing. Well, the Marines just started taking Way City back. We didn't take it back a block at a time. We took it back a step at a time. We were ordered down the street, and I was a new guy, so they told me I was going to be the point man. You know, I was the cannon fodder. So I remember just inching along down that street, and every window of every building around every nook and every cranny was a place for the enemy to hide. There was no safe place, and the gunfire was non-ceasing. Doctor, can you tell me why I still don't sleep at night? Why the sound of a chopper chills me to my bones? These tears that come and go. Can you tell me what it means? God help me, we were only 19. Well, let's see. Boy. When you're on combat operation in the field, you have to keep moving. One morning we were moving out, and I was on the point again, and I was going down this trail, and I came came face to face with a Viet Cong soldier. I had to drop on him, and I hollered at him to halt, to stop. Well, he tried to bring his rifle forward, and I just opened up. As hard as I could, I fired off 11 rounds. I only hit him 6 times. I was so nervous. And my initial emotions were, hot damn, I got one of the enemy. I got up to his position, and one of the rounds had nearly tore his arm. Well, he was saying something to me in a low, pitiful little whisper that I just didn't understand. And I wanted to comfort him and tell him everything was going to be all right. And he was, after all, some mother's son. And I just nearly got sick to my stomach. I wanted to be home in my room and away from all that shit, And it was, I looked at him, and I just had the feeling that him and I weren't that much different. And it was about that time that I had the feeling that wars are not a good way of settling disputes. With an aging orange sunset shining through the scrub, and the sound in the distance of a barking M16, when someone hollered ambush, there was a almighty roar. God help me, we were the only 19. One evening, we were doing an online sweep. It was just before dusk. We were going through a Vietnamese graveyard towards a tree line where we had spotted the enemy. Well, the NBA were sitting there waiting. The machine guns opened, and I have no memory of the initial burst of fire. My first memories is I'm laying on top of a small grave, and I could see the NBA machine gunner firing away, and I could smell the gunpowder from his muzzle blast. He was so close. And I started firing back as hard as I could. And it was like the ground had split open and the devil jumped out of hell. Well, Rover, the guy on my left, he had been killed in the initial burst of fire. And it was like I just thought I was the only one still alive there. And suddenly the guy on my right, Sonny, called out to me. And he says, "Mac, is that you? Is that you, Mac?" I said, "Yeah." Well, he was in a little swale in the graveyard just below the line of fire of the machine guns. And I tried to get around my little grave up to him, and another machine gun opened up on me in a short 3-round little burst, and one of those rounds went under my flag jacket, and it hit my shoulder blade. And you have no idea the power of a bullet until you experience something like that. Well, the rest of the guys had managed to pull back, and I didn't know if they realized we were still alive, so I was calling out, "Help, help, we need help out here." Well, they were uncertain of our position and uncertain of the NBA's position, so they weren't able to mount a rescue. But it was getting dark by now, and I couldn't see a thing. I could hear the enemy crawling around in the brush, and I kept expending my ammunition. And after about 4 or 5 hours of this, I'm down to my last magazine. And I tell Sonny, I said, "We have got to find a way to get out of here. We have got to get out of this place." And I'm almost out of ammo, and he says, "I can't move." And I was just stunned. I didn't know what to think of it. The only thing I could figure is he had been shot through the spine when he had, in the opening burst of gunfire. So I explained to him that I was nearly out of ammunition and I was going to have to pull back and try to get some help. Well, as I started crawling out of there, I came across Roper. And I reached and grabbed his arm, and he was cold and dead by then, so I just kept moving on through another brush line. And I could see our guys down behind the rice paddy. Well, not having a password, I was just forced to call out to him, "Don't shoot, it's Mac, don't shoot." Well, another Marine ran out and helped me back into our lines. And realized that they were all scared to death, and they were expecting a frontal assault from the enemy, and so I took my place on the line between 2 other Marines. And I checked my magazine, and I had 6 rounds left. Well, I say to the guys on either side of me, I said, "I'm about out of ammo. Can anybody spare a clip? Does anybody have an extra magazine?" No, was the answer I had. So it came down to where we were survivors at all costs. We cared with each other, and we watched each other's back as best we possibly could. But when it came down to it, I'm going home for you, bro. So at the break of dawn, we were on the move. And I was one of the first ones to Sonny. I knew right where he was. And the foreman started working on him. He had been shot through the arm, the legs, and he had a bullet wound in the belly, and the foreman gave him a shot of morphine. And it took about 5 seconds. He got got a little smile on his face and his eyes twinkled. He says, "Oh, this is much better." Hell yeah, after laying out there for 14 hours, shot the hell yeah. So we got him to the medevac chopper. And those choppers are just so loud, you can't hear yourself think. You just can't communicate verbally. And I looked at him and I just had the most terrible thought that me and him had just spent the most terrible time together, the most intense time any two people could share, and that I would never see him again. And we got him up in the chopper, and me and him locked eyes. He looked at me with a morphine-induced 1,000-yard stare, and I just gave him a thumbs up, and the chopper flew off into the sky. Well, that was on August 3rd, 1968. On August 3rd, every year, we'll call each other on the phone and rehash that night, and he still remembers me giving him that thumbs up. Sanford, keep in mind, the year mankind hit the moon. I still hear the sunny morning when the morphine needs his pain. Vince took the lead, he nearly gave his life away. God help me, we were only 19. Doctor, can't you tell me why I still don't sleep at night? While the sound of the chopper chills me to my feet. These tears that come and go, can you tell me what it means? God help me, we were only 19.
I served in the Navy from 1984 to 1987. I was an independent duty storekeeper, that is, anything to do with supply and logistics. I had to be trained in weapons training because I worked in security. I also handled classified information, so I got a top secret clearance. Then I went to Mayport. Mayport was fun. We got to ride around in the boat with an M16, and we'd all just go with a bullhorn and run people off of Navy's property. It was always real cold there, so I always had 3 coats on, and the fun was, get off of Navy's property! That made you have be in some authority, you know. So I left there, I went to Gulfport. Gulfport was weird. They had a list, they called it the black list, but that was the list of places that the blacks were allowed. Go figure, it was the 80s, who would think that? Then I went to New Orleans, and I stayed there for the next 10 years. New Orleans was great because it was close to home. I could see my son, my family, and it was 3 hours when I wasn't speeding, but I got to attend a lot of great schools, and the Navy was paying for it all. I got to go to Norfolk, become a Navy certified instructor. I started training in fast data to computerize the Navy. You know, back then it was a lot of paperwork. So I was with a group of people who actually computerized the military. Man, I was having a great time until some incidents happened.
What really stands out for me about Navy boot camp was how we all thirsted for information. I mean, we get letters from home sometimes, but for some reason they never let us read the newspapers. So all these rumors did the rounds, like the economy had collapsed and Donald Trump, the richest man in America, had jumped out of a building and killed himself. And this is 25 years ago, 1990. What was really taking place was the lead up to the Gulf War. The day I graduated from boot camp was the same day Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. It was also the same day I got my very first real paycheck, $800. I remember looking at that check and thinking, what am I going to do with all this money? So of course, I went to Chicago and we got so wasted. So I'm out there in Chicago in my sailor suit, and I go into the McDonald's, and all these people kept coming up to us, "You gonna go over there and kick Saddam's ass?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I guess." We didn't know what was going on. No one did. So I signed up to be a corpsman. And corpsmen, even though they're in the Navy, go everywhere with the Marines. After I finished my basic medical school over in Great Lakes, they sent us over to Camp Pendleton, California for field medical school, combat medical school really, where we learned combat maneuvers, we learned how to shoot M16s, we learned how to put on your gas mask, how to pack your pack, and we went on so many marches. Dozen-mile humps all the time, marching, marching, marching. Now that was a culture shock. Now, the Navy is pretty restrictive, but the Marines, they trained rough. They trained very rough. So this was very difficult for a lot of us to get over. But it was important because war was imminent. We knew we were going. There's all this talk about Saddam Hussein having these chemical weapons, and they were telling us that they were going to use them on us as soon as we went in there. So our instructors were always doing these gas drills, just yelling at us all the time, "Gas, gas, gas!" We'd have to take out our gas masks and put it on as quickly as we could. Check the seal. Take a deep breath. A lot of these guys, our instructors, were Vietnam vets. They would tell us, the Viet Cong didn't care about the rules of war. They targeted the corpsmen first. They knew that if they took out the officers, then the leadership was gone. If they took out the radio, communication was lost. But if they take out the corpsmen, everyone's dead. So you're number one. You better be prepared. I like to think I was more scared than I was, but really, I was just so young and stupid. I wanted to go. I really wanted to go. I'd grown up in the 80s with all these Vietnam movies, Rambo, Platoon, Full Metal Jacket. MASH was the TV show that was on every night when I went to bed. There's also this realistic part of me that was saying, I could die over there. And that really sets in when you're 18 and you're writing your will. I had a letter written up for this girl back home, and I put it in my pocket and wondered what it'd be like for her when she found out I was gassed over in Saudi Arabia. I know it sounds stupid now, but. So the invasion starts, and they send us from Camp Pendleton over to Bethesda Naval Hospital, where we're going to be stationed. Once we get there, we're told that we'll have just a couple days. As soon as you check in, then you're going to go with the Marines. And then from there, you'll go over to Saudi Arabia, and you'll be over in Iraq for the duration of the war. But as soon as we got in, as soon as we checked in, they told us that everything was changing. We turn on the TV, and we see Iraqi troops are surrendering to the Army, surrendering to the Marines, surrendering to CNN. The war was over. They told us to keep our bags ready to go at a moment's notice, but they just never called.
Then I went to Panama City. Panama City, the guys, I was one of the 6 enlisted female maids. So the guys were saying, we got a new female on base. And the females were saying, don't you spend a dime of your paycheck. I guess they knew the ropes. So Panama City was so much fun. I wound up, after that, going to the Naval Air Station in New Orleans, which, when I got there, they had a buddy system. And the way the buddy system worked was, we covered for each other, so we didn't tell a lot of things that happened. I was the single female on base one night, and the guys came and got me. They said, go help that female. So, I go to this hallway, and there's a line. Like, what the heck? And I get to the end of the line, there's this female. She has somebody in her mouth, somebody in her, well, you know, everything. But you know what? We covered that because we didn't want her to get thrown out and nobody get thrown out. So it was just some things that we covered. In 1987, I got to go to a lot of schools all the whole time. And the one school that they sent me to was a school When I went to school at Internal Revenue, it was during the time I was one of the 9 test sites for the first electronic violence program. I got a Navy Achievement Medal for that. I had a partner right off base, and I always took work home. And this particular night, I took some work home, and this guy needed to sign his paperwork, so I allowed him to come over. And he raped me. I felt so ashamed. I felt so dirty. But you know, we covered it up. Soon after that, I got bed wounds. And the reason why was because we would always run at 5 in the morning, and then we'd go to the gym at 6. And this particular morning, the female in front of me, she trips. I trip over her. I dislocate my shoulder, tore the ligaments up in my knees. And so now, I'm unfit for duty. I couldn't believe that they were going to throw me out. I couldn't believe that I could do my job. I could do the work. But they say, no, your injuries will always be. And as you get older, they'll get worse. I was devastated. I loved the Navy. I didn't want to get out. So I had to suck it up and go home.
So after I leave Bethesda, I'm sent over to the Marine Corps, 3rd Marine Division, in Okinawa, Japan. Where I was stationed was Northern Training Area. I was an instructor in the Marine Corps' Jungle Warfare Training Center. Very isolated. We're on the top of this mountain, Mount Iudake. 37 Marines, another corpsman, and me. Now the Marines look at the Navy guys a little differently. I have 2 stories about Okinawa. First one, we were always going into the jungles. It's just like those Vietnam movies, except no one's trying to kill us. So we're going into the jungles, going into the bush. Everyone has their machine guns, everybody has their packs, and we're going by this cliff. And my staff sergeant is so angry about the election. He's going off about the election, going off about Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton's gonna let all these gays in the military. Who in the fuck would vote for Bill Clinton? I mean that. Who in the fuck would vote for Bill Clinton? And remember, we're on the side of this cliff, and everybody has machine guns. And then somebody says, John did. Damn. Everybody turns around and looks at me. You voted for Bill Clinton? Yeah. Really? Yeah. Are you gay? No, Staff Sergeant. I mean, who would come out of the closet in a moment like that? Everyone has machine guns. So he goes on. If I find out any of you guys are queers, I'm going to throw your ass right off that cliff. You hear me? Right off that cliff. And thankfully, one of my sergeants spoke up. Hey, old Staff Sergeant, I voted for Bill Clinton too. Ah, damn. So it's not just the Navy guy. I expect it from him. I didn't expect it from you. And he just grumbled the whole way home. Second story. I don't know if this is still allowed. Hopefully it's not. But in the military, when you're promoted, there's usually some kind of hazing ceremony involved. In the Navy, it's called tacking on your stripes. What they do is when you make petty officer, get stripes on one arm, and everybody of that rank or higher hits you as hard as they can on that arm, and then shakes your hand afterwards. Congratulations. Good job. All right, it's called tacking on your stripes. Well, the Marines, they do it a little differently. Marines, they get stripes on both arms, and they get this red stripe that goes down the side of their dress blues when they make NCO, and that's called a blood stripe. Now, as I mentioned, the Marines look at the Navy guys a little differently. But when you're a Navy corpsman, when you're stationed with the Marines, if you want them to respect you, then you have to go where they go and do what they do. Even so, I think I surprised them when I agreed to go through the hazing ceremony. I had to go through a gauntlet of Marines, dozens of them. Everyone hitting you as hard as they they could on the arms, both arms, and then kneeing you as hard as they could in the thigh. I wasn't expecting the last part. That was the worst beating I ever got in my life. It was brutal. It took me at least about a week to be able to walk. And about 2 weeks later, when I go on my first run afterwards, my leg turns black and blue from the top to bottom. Right up here, right down there. What it was the blood that was on the inside, and my muscles were leaking out to the outside. Black and blue, top to bottom. That's a blood stripe. And that sucked. But at the same time, I was like, damn, I got a blood stripe. I'm in the Marines now. They even started calling me Marine after that. What's up, Marine? What's up, Marine? I was like, ah. Yeah, it's definitely a masculinity thing. It was an intense year over there in Okinawa, in those jungles, up on that mountain.
I got my orders for my first duty station, MCAS Iwakuni. I raised my hand. What's MCAS Iwakuni? The instructor says, Marine Corps Air Station, Iwakuni, Japan. Everybody's like, son, you're going to be with Marines. But I didn't care. I was just so happy to be going to Japan. I told my mom once, and this is documented, I was going to do 3 things. I was going to be rich, I was going to have some hard times, I was going to Japan. 2 out of the 3 ain't bad, right? My job at Iwakuni was to take care of the service records for everyone in the Navy stationed there and to ensure that Marine records were kept to Navy specifications. We were right there in Hiroshima. It was great. We could drink when we were under 21, although we were under 21. The unspoken rule was that if you can get past the MPs in a somewhat coherent fashion, you wouldn't get into trouble. You know, life sometimes gives us things we don't expect. After a month at Iwakuni, I get a call. I'm watching you. It kept happening. Then one night I was in a club and I get another phone call. I'm watching you right now in the club. It spooked me, so I got out of there. I go to my room. I lie down. I woke up to a 6'5" Marine on top of me. I didn't know who he was. He was so full of rage. The next 20 minutes were the worst of my life. I never thought that I would be raped. My survival mode kicked in, said, he's upset, work his ego. It's okay, I want you. He believed me. I told him I'd been drinking. I told him I was going to throw up. So he let me up, and I ran out and started beating on my clothes store. This is 1999. Don't ask, don't tell was in full effect. I was scared I was going to lose my job, but I still reported it. At first, there wasn't a lot that could be done for me because I didn't know who he was. Eventually, he raped a Marine that did know him, and then found out he raped 3 other Marines on top of it. People started talking. This is a small base. I dealt with the stares and the whispers. I mean, at first, no one's talking to me. We'd go out to Hiroshima, have drinks. Next weekend, they wouldn't know who I was. I had to find a group of people who accepted me. One guy, Torres, was a strong man. I was leaning on my strong brothers because I was eroding quickly. He was feeling really down one weekend, so we decided to have a barbecue for him. We heard signs, and a friend comes running out, and she said, "Oh my God, Torres just hung himself." I ran out to the barracks, and I see them cutting him down. They were so nonchalant. At around the same time, Barry Winchell, an Army guy, got beat to death with a baseball bat because they thought he was gay. Torres was gay too. We started getting sensitivity training, but I remember my CO pulling me aside and saying, "Your name has come up twice now in relation to homosexual activities. One more time, and you're out."
After I left Okinawa, I was sent to the 2nd Marine Division over in Camp Lejeune. And although I was still with the Marines, the brotherhood that I felt in Okinawa was severely missing. After Camp Lejeune, I was trying my best to get anywhere I could go, anywhere outside of Camp Lejeune. I tried to get back to DC, get back to Bethesda. The closest I could come was Aerospace Medical Technician School, in Pensacola, Florida. So I'm in med school, and after we're finishing, we're about ready to graduate, and they give us what's called the dream sheet. And on the dream sheet, you pick 3 locations that you want to go. And the detailer said that we'll try our best to send you to the desired location you want. So I chose San Diego, San Francisco, and Seattle. Imagine my disappointment when I opened my orders. Pensacola. They didn't even try. I look at it, 5 years in Pensacola. I mean, I liked it enough, but I didn't know if I could handle 5 more years in Pensacola. I got out March 1st, 1999, but as it turns out, I like Pensacola a lot more than I thought I would. I met people on base, but especially I met people off base. I found a community out there and a lot of friends. And even though I had no connections at all to Pensacola, no connections to Florida, I decided to stick around.
Then the hazing started. I requested a new room, and command paired me with a racist homophobe. He said, I don't like niggers, and I don't like fags. I'm sleeping with one eye open. I would walk into the chow hall, and 100-something people would just stop talking. Now that's a cold feeling. Once someone placed socks in the form of male genitalia on my bed. I went to go tell my sergeant, but when we got back, it was gone. My drinking intensified. I just drank my paycheck away. I'm on Prozac. My therapist keeps telling me how bad gay sex is. He's quoting Bible scriptures to me every week. At no time did I tell him I was gay. I told him that I was sexually assaulted and that a good friend who happened to be gay had killed himself. He said, you are who you hang out with. And I already had 2 strikes. Then some friends had a party in my room. I wasn't even there. Someone said it was my party and that there were gay people there. Strike 3. Instead of a court-martial, I opted for an Article 32 hearing, which says that in accordance with the UCMJ, you need a preponderance of evidence to prove I'm gay. I had to listen to people like off of my friends say things like, Jones dyes his hair red, man. That's got to mean something. Or, he doesn't keep pictures of his family around. That dude is gay. Or, there was that one time he accidentally sat on my lap. I was discharged on December 5th of 2000. I was no longer Navy material. And then my world crashed.
By January 2005, I'd finished just 1 semester in college, and I got the letter. You have 30 days to pack your stuff. So I withdrew from college and got ready to go to Iraq. When I called and told my dad I got the letter, he was so mad he actually called the governor's office to tell him they made a mistake. And then, when I called my mom, she just cried and cried. Everybody I told cried, but I was like, let me get on with it and do my job. After a few weeks of training, we kissed our families goodbye and loaded up in the buses. I cried the whole way. I was ready to go, but I was like, shit, I don't think I'm coming back. Not alive anyway. So, we were all so scared and quiet. That bus ride was so quiet, you could hear a rat take a shit. We were just freaked out completely. We were just kids, you know?
At AIT, I trained to maintain power generation equipment. After we were finished, we had 2 weeks of leave. And then I got a phone call that our unit had been mobilized to deploy to Iraq. The last time I saw him before I left, my dad said, son, keep your head down, do what you're told. As he drove away, neither one of us looked back. And that's what it meant to be a man. I suppressed insecurities. I worked hard at being a good soldier, because working hard at being a good soldier helped keep me distracted from what was going on inside. In December of 2004, we flew to Kuwait. We had about 2 weeks to adjust to the time, and then on a cold January morning, we staged our vehicles at the border of Iraq and crossed in. IEDs were just becoming a weapon of choice by the insurgents. They were pretty effective. Every mile we went, we would see a burned out car here, a burned out tank there. And the closer we got to Basra, the more destruction we would see. As we got out of Basra into the next town, we had to cross a really small, rickety, rusty old bridge. And it was pretty high off of the water. And we had to move really slow across the bridge, and as I'm sitting there on the bridge, I'm thinking, they could just blow this bridge anytime. I mean, it was constant paranoia and fear. Every mile could be your last. So, go figure, power generators were contracted out to Halliburton in Iraq. So, I was a machine gunner. I had a machine gun mounted on a 2.5-ton truck and a gun turret. And we had signs on the backs of our vehicles that said, in Arabic, "Stay back 100 meters or you will be fired upon." Well, it's my first day in the country, and all of a sudden a dump truck comes out of nowhere, out of the corner of my eye, and pulls right in front, in between me and the guy in front of me. And my driver's yelling at me, "Shoot, shoot, shoot." I didn't shoot. He was run off of the road by some of our patrols later, and come to find out, he was just an old farmer, uneducated. He couldn't read. But I decided at that moment I wasn't ever going to hesitate again. After dark, we pulled into our base, Fob Hotel in the Jaffa, Iraq. We grabbed all of our gear, and I went into this small green army tent. There happened to be no one in. It was nice to get a little bit of solitude. And I laid out on this cot, and I laid down, and as everything started to settle, I could hear these machine guns in the distance. So I got up and I walked outside and looked out across the desert, and I could see these red tracers just popping up. And I remember thinking, "What the hell are you doing here?" And then the next thought was, "Shut up, do what you're told."
I was stationed at Pensacola-area, Iraq. It set right off a major highway. Tents and wooden shacks is all we had. We weren't allowed to go anywhere without our helmet, our vest, and our weapon. In the green zone, soldiers got to walk around whatever they wanted, but we got mortars and RPGs 3 or 4 times a week. So when I first got there, I said, well, shit, if I don't die here, I kind of want to see what it's like out there. So I volunteered to be the captain's Humvee driver. It was my first mission. I was loading up my truck, getting it ready. It was me and Top, the first sergeant that taught me how to drive, and 2 other buddies. And we hear thump. They say, uh-oh, and just take off. See, I had my back turned, putting water in the truck. So I turn around, oh shit, where did everybody go? Then I hear, boom! Dust is flying everywhere. Top, where is he? I start to run for cover, and then boom! I wasn't fast enough. It blew me into the wall I was running from. I couldn't hear shit. I saw my buddy's mouth moving. What? I was more worried about Top. They found him out there passed out and had to medevac him. I thought I was okay, but I guess my body must have been in shock because later that night I felt a real sharp pain go up my back. I couldn't walk. I couldn't breathe. I had to be medevaced to Baghdad ER. The doctors there found out I dislocated and fractured some ribs and messed up my vertebrae. They wrapped me up, gave me a cane, sent me back to camp. I wasn't healed, so my unit kind of turned their backs on me. You know, a bro soldier's not a good soldier, right? So I went into a big depression. I just stayed in my tent. I couldn't really do anything. Couldn't walk. Everything hurt. So I was laying in my tent one day, waiting on my lunch plate. It was normal procedure for me to sleep with my weapon between my legs, with the barrel at my feet, of course. But today, the barrel was toward my face. I laid there and I thought about all the pain I was in. I couldn't even move. I thought about my friends whose dead bodies were being shipped back to the States. And I thought about if we got mortared any minute, I couldn't even get up and run for cover. So I switched the lever from safety semi and put the barrel in my mouth. Just as I put my finger on the trigger, I hear, "Slim, I got your lunch." Flipped it back to safe, took a deep breath, said, "No, I don't want to die this way. I'd rather go out fighting." So I said, just fuck it, bite the bullet and act like I'm not hurting. I wanted to be a good soldier, but I was in constant pain.
I was in the job at 5 Hotel and I was on guard duty when I lost my leg. There were 12-foot concrete walls around the entire base, and as there was one gap, and the gap had a wire in between it, and that wire was our gate. Right outside the gate was concrete barriers set up in these 90-degree angles, kind of like a maze, so that an insurgent couldn't just ram the base with a bomb in the car. So one day we're out on guard duty and my sergeant yells at me, "There's a convoy coming, drop the wire." So I'll run out there, drop the wire. And instead of stepping back inside the base like I usually normally did, for some reason that day I stepped out into this maze of barriers. As I turned to my left, I noticed a huge truck was about to be coming through. And he had an inline tank on the back. And as he's coming through these angles, he's banging this wall, banging that wall. And so I figured I would help guide him. So I turned around and I'm guiding him. And he's still banging walls. And I didn't realize he wasn't even looking at me. He didn't even know I was there. So the closer he got to me, the less space was there. So I continued to back into this corner. And the closer he got to me, he was making this wide left turn. And I knew he was about to make contact with the wall, me in between him. So I jumped, and my left foot cleared the last of the tires, but my right foot was dragging behind. And the wheel of the tire grabbed my boot and pulled it into the wall and just sort of smashed it in between. I heard every bone in my foot crunch at one time, in 1 second, less than a second. When I think about it sometimes, I can still hear that sound. It makes the foot that I don't have hurt. So, tough guy that I am, I get up, I'm good, put my foot down on the ground and just fall over. And that's when I screamed, pain set in. And the driver of the truck must have heard me scream because he stopped. And medics ran out to check on me and they pulled me back and laid me out. They gave me a shot of morphine. And as the morphine kicked in, everything slowed down almost to a complete stop. The rotors of the helicopters were in slow motion. All the sounds had started to go quiet. People were running this way, running that way. Any anxiety I had about the situation and what was going on just evaporated. I mean, here I am in the middle of a war zone and I didn't care. So the medics grabbed me and put me on a litter and got me into this black box. And they made it back at ER.
It was October 25th, 2005, my birthday. I had just gotten off guard duty and was headed back to my tent when I hear boom, boom. It's regular procedure by then. Everybody to the bunkers. So I'm sitting in the bunker. Happy birthday to me. Boom! Y'all done yet? Finally, they give the all clear. I'm walking back past the main road, and then boom! Like an earthquake. Our first ever vehicle bomb at the gate. Dust is everywhere, everybody's running. I remember thinking, why are they carrying that boot like that? Oh, then I realized that was somebody's leg. Then I seen a group of guys run by carrying the guy whose leg it was. That was some crazy shit, and that was my 20th birthday. After a while, you just start praying to make it home. We got hit in a helicopter once. I was being flown back to Baghdad for more treatment. It's me, my buddy, the gunner, and the pilot. The doors are open so you can see the insurgents on the ground aiming up at us. All of a sudden, I see blood splash all over the windshield. The pilot had gotten hit. He couldn't fly, so the gunner had to take over for him. Luckily, he knew how to fly. And my buddy, just without even thinking, immediately unstraps his seatbelt, jumps at the gun, and just started firing at everything in sight. It happened so fast. Before we go out any mission, we would always say a prayer. Dear God, today while I'm out, I might forget about you, but please don't forget about me. Because see, you can't think about God when you're aiming your weapon at somebody or when they're pointing one at you.
I was at Walter Reed for 18 months. It took 8 months in physical therapy to learn how to walk again. It took the Army 10 more months to do my paperwork, assign me a disability percentage, and retire me out. And during that time, nothing to do, sitting there at Walter Reed, I had already begun this downward spiral. I was taking lots of pain medication. Every day for 2 years, from that first shot of morphine, I had some type of opiate painkiller in my system. But after the first 8 months, it stopped being legitimate. I struggled with post-traumatic stress, and I had a psychotic episode at Walter Reed that landed me in the psych facility. I remember this, during this one episode, I called my family back home, and I said, you guys need to go check the perimeter. Someone's strapping bombs to the house. They're going to blow you up. So I ended up in the psych ward, and the first morning that I was waking up, I remember my eyes opening up, and they must have sedated me because I was really foggy. And as I was opening my eyes, there's this figure. And there's this guy standing right over me, foot from my face, looking down at me like this. And I said, this guy looked exactly like Snoop Dogg. I was like, Snoop Dogg? He says, the devil's a liar. And he just walked away. I sat up and looked around and was like, where the hell am I? And that's all this guy would say the entire time we were there. They would ask him a question, the devil's a liar. Hey, you need to get up and go do this, the devil's a liar. But I do remember sitting and looking at this guy one day and wondering who he must have been before whatever happened to him happened.
I was discharged in 1971, and that's when my alcohol abuse got really serious. Marijuana was easy to find as tobacco, and most any other drug for that matter. I would run around town drinking and carrying on, and it was just a thing where I let me get out of control. I turned into a little garbage can. You know, I'd open my mouth, and anything that would alter my mood, I would throw it in there. It was as much to get to sleep at night as anything else. Well, I followed some friends in Pensacola. And back then, boy, Pensacola was a party town. We'd go from bar to bar every night, drinking and carrying on. Well, that lifestyle would catch up to you. It was about to kill me, and I had to find a way to stop drinking.
I think I lost my mind. When I returned to Pensacola, I went to the VA, saw a veteran service officer. He looked at my paperwork, PTSD. Then he looked at me, and I didn't see nothing wrong with you. What's wrong with you? I said, I have some problems. He said, He took his prosthetic leg, he threw it on the desk. He said, you ain't missing a leg or arm, ain't a damn thing wrong with you. I said, okay. So I just thought nothing was wrong with me. Then, before I got headboarded, I had just bought a brand new car. I called GMAC saying I'm paying, switching from military pay to civilian pay. 2 days later, they came and repoed my car. Man, I felt so alone that night. I wanted to talk to someone. My phone wasn't on yet, didn't have cable, had 2 quarters, so I decided to walk down the street, call my mom. Answer machine picked up, I lost that quarter. The next quarter, same thing happened. Nobody was home. So, I'm feeling really bad right about now. I started walking down that dark street, and I just cried. I cried, Lord, why me? Why me, Lord? I just couldn't believe that with all the knowledge that I had, and all the money that they had invested in me, that I was no use to them. no more. So I started thinking about my son and my family, my grandchildren, and I decided to take myself to the hospital. And when I got there, I decided that I'd never do that again. See, the problem was I tried to work. I tried to get a job. But I never knew when I was going to wake up in the morning how I was going to feel. I didn't know if I woke up in the morning if my body would even move. But I had to accept that my torn ligaments, my knees, my joints, PTSD from sexual trauma, diabetes, and all of the other stuff. It was going to be a lifetime thing, and I had to live with it. So, it's been very hard, but I'm trying to accept it.
When I first got home from Iraq, it wasn't long before my mom said, look, you gotta find somewhere to stay because you scared the shit out of us. I mean, I couldn't really blame her because I wouldn't sleep. And when I did sleep, I just wake up screaming. I was so hypervigilant, but I was still ready for war. So I tried active duty for a while in Hattiesburg, but I was so anxious. I was drinking just to stay calm every day. Everyone I used to know said I changed. I just stayed in my house drinking like crazy. I was so angry and full of rage. I was mad at the Army, mad at Iraq, mad because I lost friends there, mad at my family, and mad because my friends said I had changed. So after a year, active duty didn't work out. I tried to find little civilian jobs around Hattiesburg, but I found out working with civilians just didn't work for me. Civilians didn't seem respectful. I couldn't talk how I was used to talking. I mean, you look out for one another. You take care of your brother. You're not important, your brother is.
I thought, I'm a failure. I wanted 20 years and I couldn't even do 4. My mom's like, what happened? But I was too scared to tell her how bad it was. I woke up that first Monday without a job, so I just started drinking. I didn't trust anyone. I didn't want to stress people to know my real name. I was like, call me Jonesy. Jonesy became my persona. I had 6 piercings in my face because I didn't want to look like that kid who had been a United States sailor. I was Jonesy for years. I drank, did drugs, couch surfed, couldn't hold down jobs. I got into relationships that were abusive. Eventually, I found a relationship that I wanted to fight for, so I stopped drinking for a year. And people were like, Jonesy, you're not going to be able to stop. Not drinking, the DTs set in. I started having nightmares. I would see my rapist's face. There was just so much pain that I couldn't take it. So I took my partner's credit card and I went on a bender. I spent $5,000 all on alcohol. I owned up to it. I took on the debt. But in the state of Florida, credit card fraud over $5 grand is a felony, so there was a warrant out for my arrest. Everything had fallen apart. I remember sitting with a knife ready to slit my wrist. I thought of my family. I put the knife down and I prayed. God, you're the only way. I don't know what to do, and I can't do it alone. There has to be a reason for this.
After they retired me out, the justification for the wars falling apart in the media and in my mind, I started to dissect everything that had happened to me. How did I get here? Why are we over there in the first place? And were those guys in flip-flops and rusty rifles actually a threat to my family back home? And I didn't agree with the war anymore. The one thing that I thought that I should feel most proud of actually had started to become a fraud, and I felt disgusted. My addictions progressed. I was still taking painkillers and drinking alcohol on top of it, and I got in fights and some pretty bad car accidents. I hurt everyone that was close to me, anyone that I ever cared about. After 2010, I was tired of running. And honestly, it's because there was nowhere else to run. So I checked myself back into treatment and happened to be placed in a post-traumatic stress group where I met the first therapist to ever break ice with me. And she only scratched the surface. After I left treatment, I was still doing everything else besides drugs and alcohol to cover up what was going on. And that's when I met Robert, a Vietnam veteran. Robert suggested that I learn meditation. And I said, I'm not a tree hugger. He questioned all the skewed perceptions that I had. He would say things like, well, you're right. It could be that way, but it could be this way. He started to dismantle all of these mental constructs that I had set up to keep me trapped. He waited for me to be ready. And then one day I asked him if I could accompany him to the meditation center in town. Excuse me. Meditation helped me to just sit still. I once had the perspective that you had to confront every problem that you had like a bull. You had to ram through that problem. And once you rammed through it, you never had to see it again. It was done, taken care of, over. But I've learned over time that things like balance and happiness require that I do daily things. I have to remain vigilant because the symptoms of post-traumatic stress manifest themselves in ways that are delicate, fragile. And if I don't remain vigilant, then my history shows that I will behave in ways that aren't supportive to me or to anyone else.
God had a plan, but I was too scared to turn myself in. I knew about prison, but I couldn't be in another place where I'd be judged on my manhood or my weakness. In the end, a friend and I got stopped by a trooper when he made an illegal turn. That illegal turn was the best thing for my life. I mean, jail felt like boot camp. Here are 80 guys all sitting around talking about what big shots they are, all sitting in jail. It was time to eat some crow. God had set my ass down away from drugs, away from society, so I cleaned up. A VA counselor came in, and I didn't trust the VA. It was all part of the military system. But we talked for 3 hours and 45 minutes. She goes, have you ever heard of PTSD? Yeah, but that's for people who were in combat. She goes, no, you're a card-carrying member. It comes in many forms, and yours is very severe. It felt like God had answered my prayers, y'all. I mean, he had sent the people I was supposed to meet. Credit card fraud. She actually goes, we're going to help you with the felony, we're going to help you with the PTSD. Credit card fraud carries with it 5 to 8 years in prison. I had already served 5 months, but with the VA's help, the judge gave me 6 months plus time served. I only have 1 month left. I remember a CEO asking me, how are you doing today, Jones? I'm living a dream. You realize you're in jail, right? Yeah, but now I feel like I can live my dream.
When I was in the Navy, I gravitated towards the intellectual. There was always something, no matter where I was. When I was with the Marines, just by chance, a lot of my roommates happened to be punks, anarchists, socially conscious people, folks willing to take a stand up for one another. So I guess you could say it was the military that actually drove me to punk rock. Not necessarily the music, but the anti-establishment culture. So when I got out of the Navy, I moved into this big punk house. We had anywhere between 5 and a dozen roommates at any one time, maybe 75 people over the course of a number of years. Politically, it's very different from the Navy. It was a collective, like a commune in the city. And I tried my best not to work for as long as I could. And rent was pretty cheap, so it was kind of possible. I lived off my severance check for quite a while. After that was done, then I did odd jobs here and there. I sold plasma. I wrote music reviews, and with the CDs that I was sent from the record labels, I would go sell those and make a few extra bucks. You know, at the time, I didn't think that that was such an odd transition out of the Navy. But in retrospect, I realized just how different my experience was from so many other people that had served. But one of the things that stands out to me at that moment was this one time in the house, we had about half of the roommates in there, half our roommates were veterans. And that was something we never, ever talked about.
I moved to Pensacola in 2008, and I met my husband a few months later. He's not military, and I guess that's good because we kind of balance each other out. Early on in the relationship, I said to him, look, I've been to Iraq, I'm crazy as hell. You gonna have to deal with me or there's the doorway. Bless his heart, he started Googling PTSD, and he's always been supportive. He was like, you crazy? Me too, aren't we all? I was like, really, you don't care? So we had our daughter Cameron in 2009, and she'll be 6 later this month.
My last drink was on January 13th, 1997. Nearly 19 years without a drink. No weed, nothing. When you start getting sober, you begin to see things and think more clearly. Well, I could plainly see that I was different than a lot of people. Dropping down, I go off like a rocket. Get up in the middle of the night, being unable to sleep, check the doors, make sure they're locked. Look out the windows, make sure nobody's trying to sneak up on me, trying to get me or something. You know, it was just I don't do it as much as I used to, but I still do that today occasionally. I've been married 3 times. I guess we all have shortcomings. I've been single a long time now. When I got out of the Marines, I started learning how to play the guitar. Well, there's something about an acoustic guitar that I just love the vibrations. I don't know, some guitarists do a sweet little finger picking thing, and I love the sound and I love that style. But I like to strum the damn thing. I don't know if I like explosions and gunfire or what, but it's just, I want some noise out of it. I go to the rifle range occasionally, just to burn some ammunition and smell the cordite. I think that Vietnam was the worst year of my life, but I love the smell of gunpowder. I don't know what the answers are, but I do know that I had to find a way to get in touch with those feelings, to live with them, and to accept things the way that they are.
I wanted to be a more productive person, so I started volunteering at my church. I met some guys, and they invited me to a Gulf Coast Veteran Advocacy Council meeting. Now, I'm helping other veterans. It helps me get out of the house, keeps me from being stuck in the bed. You know, the Navy made me a better person. They build character in me. But you know what I think? I think they need to put all kids through boot camp. And let me be the real sorry. I think that I really had a great time in the Navy. I just hated to get thrown out.
I went to the VA in 2011 after I was honorably discharged. I felt like I deserved it, like they owed it to me to fix me. I got a team of doctors, mental health specialists, support groups for this and that, combat nightmares. The doctors there found out I had PTSD, along with 2 herniated discs in my cervical spine and 2 in my lumbar. I also have a rib that pops out every now and then, but no biggie. After I got out, it was like cutting loose a ball and chain. I mean, I'm gonna keep the ball and chain. I'm proud of the ball and chain, but it's not holding me back anymore. I'm just gonna put it up there on the shelf, maybe polish it up, look at it sometimes. I was just too young to see that shit back then. Why did we even have to be over there in the first place? I don't know. We just had to tell ourselves something to deal with it every day, like we're just keeping the peace and getting the bad guys. I don't fuss with it anymore, though. I've let it go now.
In 2005, my daughter was born. few things had to change in my life. So, with the help of my wife, I went back to school. I used the GI Bill to the full extent, the whole time very conscious of how many people died to get that GI Bill, and now here I am using it. But I used it to the full extent. I ended up earning a master's degree in history and a master's degree in English, and now I'm on faculty at the University of West Florida. Recently, we were at a graduation ceremony. I was in my full regalia. It was the first time I was in uniform in about a decade, too. So I'm in full regalia, and the keynote speaker is a general in the Army. He's up there speaking, and he gives a good speech, about overcoming adversity. And while he's talking, he asks the audience, asks the students in particular, the graduating class, how many of you are veterans? And a number of them stood up, and everybody in the audience applauded. And then he looked back at the faculty. How many of you are veterans? I stood up, and this other guy, Vietnam age, stood up with me. And I looked around and thought, really? Just two? I mean, it made sense. They were professors, so when we were all of military age, they went to school. They did what I probably should have done, what we all probably should have done. They went to school, but instead, we enlisted. But that was a really enlightening experience for me, just to see how few people actually serve, at least in the military. But it helped to explain why a lot of people just didn't get it, or didn't get the experience, or even had these different ideas and stereotypes about the veterans themselves. But nonetheless, looking at that moment and seeing just how different our experiences of youth were was incredibly eye-opening. And I saw myself at that moment as an exception. And it felt really weird, to be honest. Very weird. Here I was, standing up there with the faculty. I have my degrees. I served a decade in the military, practically a decade in the military. And I'm in the same place where they are. But at the same time, there's just two of us, only two, who had served in the military. I looked around and thought, huh, really?
Since 2010, among other things, I've run several 5K, 10K races, 2 half marathons, and this morning I finished my first ever full marathon. And I ran that marathon in support of raising awareness to veteran suicides, with a climbing number of veteran suicide. I attribute much of my recovery to reaching out to others and serving and helping. I feel like for my healing to be really meaningful, I have to share what I've learned. I've traveled to several different countries since 2010, helping facilitate meditation retreats. I see my survival today as a chance to live for those men and women who didn't come back home. And sometimes I feel them, and I see them looking down on me, live. I don't really know where this is all going, but I'm definitely looking forward to finding out.
My goal became transforming my life. I had to own my past. I had to face into my pain. I had to set goals. I had to live a structured life. I said, how am I going to do that? Higher education. And it's not easy. I don't want to live without a roommate. I still check that my door is locked at all times. But I don't want to escape anymore. I try to feel the situations that I'm in. My plan right now is to be the first me. My story no longer belongs to me, it belongs to the world. And I know that there are many others out there that have experienced rape, homelessness, drug and alcohol abuse. A mistake is just a mistake. We got to start seeing people for their hearts. It doesn't matter your service. It doesn't matter if you're a veteran or a civilian. It matters who we are as people. And I know there's someone out there right now that needs to hear my story. Because at the end of the day, that's what my story is. It's hope. My name is Timothy Jones. I served in the United States Navy.
Adjutant Prairie, United States Marine Corps.
Deborah Russell, United States Navy.
Scott Satterwhite, United States States Navy.
Tabitha Nichols, United States Army.
Elliot Jacob Smith, U.S. Army.
This program was made possible by the Florida Humanities Council. We come from all over, and we become one state, where we share in the history and become part of the culture that is Florida. The Florida Humanities Council, bringing Floridians together by sharing the stories of our state.